Okay, so hello everyone. I'm going to be doing a slightly different deck than usual. I'm not actually playing the game, although there will be a game in the background. I'm going to be telling you why Face Hunter is probably the best, if not the best budget deck in the game right now, and why it is the best in my opinion. Why it's probably actually like a tier 2 deck just because of the meta that it's in. So I'm going to have the deck off to the right-hand side here, or maybe to the left. I don't know. I haven't edited it yet, but probably the right. And you can see it's 1,400 dust. And so this is going to be in 3 parts. I'm going to describe the deck, changes you can make to make it cheaper, which is what I'm doing now. And then I'm going to talk about why it's really good. And then I'm going to talk about why it beats some other fairly budget decks and why this one stands above all the rest. So, as you can see, I have a Raptor Hatchling and 2 Savannah Hymanes as rares in this deck. Now, you don't need any of these. The Raptor Hatchling, you could definitely replace with like a Plated Beetle. The extra 1-drop is helpful, which is why I opted for that rather than the Plated Beetle, but it could work with the Plated Beetle too. And the Savannah Hymane, that one's a little harder to remove in my opinion, just because it's like your one solid late game card. But if absolutely needed, you could replace it with like a Stranglethorn Tiger or a Violet Worm if needed, or something else at the end of the game, or a Nesting Rock, assuming that you have a couple of minions out there. And then it gives it taunt, and it's a pretty decent body. Those 3 are pretty decent options to replace the Savannah Hymane. The Hymane having the Death Rattle and the Violet Worm having the Death Rattle, and the Tiger having Stealth means that the beast will probably survive or have a lasting effect on the board, which is why I think that Violet Worm, Tiger, and Rock will be the best, because Rock has a lot of health, Tiger has Stealth, Violet Worm has the Death Rattle. They all have ways of having more of an impact than just a big drop. Because the Savannah Hymane, the reason why it's pretty good is because of the Death Rattle. If it dies and gets removed, say against a Shaman with a Volcano, it kills it. Or say Mage pings it, Flame Strikes, or Meteors it. You have minions left on the board that you could synergize with and still do damage with. So 7 health is a pretty sticky minion. Tiger has Stealth, so it won't die, and the Worm has Death Rattle too. So point is, it has ways of having an effect on the board, or potentially having an effect on the board even after it's been played. And for the Nesting Rock, it can be a taunt if you're playing against another aggro deck, which is one of this deck's kind of weaknesses, in a sense. Actually, I don't know. It's kind of a 50-50 matchup, and why it would probably help against Odd Paladin, which is probably one of the worst matchups other than Priest. So that's basically the rundown of the deck. It's a very standard, just Face Hunter deck. I'm looking at the list, and I don't think there's anything really all that unique about it. There's a Deadly Shot. There's a Hunter's Mark. You could also replace the Hatchling for another Candle Shot if needed, if you don't want to play the Beetle, or a Savannah Hymane for a Candle Shot, because 2 is kind of useful, but I don't know. I actually took one out because I draw them later in the game when I didn't need them, and opted for changing it into a Raptor Hatchling because at least it's a beast with synergy. But other than that, I really don't see anything super unique about this Face Hunter deck. I'm not claiming to have created this deck. It's just a solid deck. So I'm going to go into why this is probably the best budget deck in the game right now. And to do that, I'm going to show you my win rates. Now, if you look at the Hunter win rate, it beats the most popular deck in NA, which is Druid. Its win rate is 11 and 8 percentage-wise. It doesn't matter. Point is, it beats it more than 50% of the time. Probably around like a 60-ish% win rate. And because of that, it's just a really good deck. It beats the second most popular deck, being Warlock, 18 to 8. Okay, and now that's... So in NA, Warlock and Druid, from my experience of almost 50, 60 games, more than 50% of all of the decks I play are Druid and Warlock. So the fact that it has a winning matchup against both of these is insane. And now you could say, well, you see, it's probably because you were playing from rank like 14 to rank 7, you idiot. And to that I respond, well, that does have some truth to it. Some people are misplaying. But at the same time, despite that, I have like a 65% win rate with this deck. Before I started playing this deck, my Hybrid Hunter, which was like a mix of Face Hunter and Spell Hunter, had dropped almost a 54% win rate, I think. And now it's back up to 59, and I've been climbing through the ranks, so it's been getting harder. It was at about a 61. So as the skill gets better, it's going to definitely lower. But again, it is a budget deck. It's possible to get Legend with this deck, I think, actually, but I don't expect it to be like super duper top tier. I'm not claiming that. I'm claiming that it is a solid tier 2 deck that is extremely budget, less than 1,000 dust, and easy for anybody to craft. That's what I'm claiming. So if you guys are saying that, if your complaint is that I'm playing in too low ranks for this to actually matter, the people who are using the budget decks are the people in these ranks who want to get to like rank 5 and even maybe Legend for the first time. I could see this deck getting to Legend. And so for all the people who complain about that, that's my argument, basically. So if you look at all of the other matchups, it wins most. Warrior is a little bit surprising, to be honest. I feel like Warrior, with all of the armor that it gains, it wouldn't be easy to rush him down, but it works. Probably because one of the cards I use is Bear Shark, can't be executed, and this deck revolves around buffing a few beasts and making them strong, giving them Wind Fury and tons of attack and stuff, and then finishing them off with Kill Command. And that's hard to deal with as a warrior who can't execute. So I think that's why the matchup with the warrior is good, because if you buff a Bear Shark, the warrior has very little way of dealing with it. This deck, I feel like the win rate with Rogue is probably around 50%. It's 3 and 4 right now, but that's not a huge sample size, to be honest. It's 7 games out of the like almost probably around 100 that I've played. No, you can see right here, I've played a little more than 100 with this deck. And so this deck loses to more mid-range and face decks because against Paladin, well, not necessarily mid-range, because it beats Spell Hunter, which is a fairly mid-range deck, but loses to Paladin. Basically, what I'm saying is this deck does not do well against the Rogue's face damage, like, because they rush face, and if they pop off, they could win with the synergy and like Cold Bloods and Executes and SI agents and whatnot. But at the same time, Hunter can pop off too with Beast synergy, or they just might not get it. So this is really a 50-50 matchup, in my opinion. Priest makes sense that it's this bad of a matchup, because it has Psychic Scream, it has Duskbreaker, it has a lot of heal, it has big creatures that can deal with my big creatures that I buffed up. I understand why that happens. And Paladin, their board is just too wide, and the only way I have to deal with it is Unleash the Hounds. And as you can see, it's not even that bad of a matchup, even though I consider this probably one of its worst matchups. It's second worst, to be exact. And honestly, I don't even think it's that bad. Like, it's definitely a winnable matchup. Hard, yes, but definitely winnable. And it beats everything else. This deck is in a very slow meta. As you can see, Druid's very popular with Taunt Druid. Warlock's popular, although that's a mix of like Cube, Even, and Zoo. Warrior is fairly popular, along with Mage being slower, more controlled decks. Haven't played against many tempo. I think I played against like one tempo Mage, and that deck beat me because I couldn't deal with the Mana Worm until turn 4 with a Flanking Strike, and by that time it had done a ton of damage to me. Not important. Anyway, it's so fast that it can beat every single slow deck. Beats Shudderwalk. It does okay against even, it does decent against even Shaman, and it beats all of the other slow decks just because of how fast it is. Now, I think that it's better than all the other budget decks. The only few that I have had the opportunity to play is Token Druid. Token Druid's not that great because against, say, another Druid, they'll play Spreading Plague, and you'll sit there being like, well, okay, I have 7 1/1 Wisps, but he's got 7 1/5 things. I don't know what they're called, actually. What are they? Not important. Then I have 1/5 Taunts, and it's impossible to deal with. Warlock board wipe, Priest board wipe, Paladin, it can produce more 1/1s than your Whispering Woods can. But it's still a decent deck because it could definitely catch people off guard, and I wouldn't count it out, but I would say that Face Hunter is better. The only deck that I'd say could potentially be better than this is Zoolock, the Heal Zoolock. But you see, the only times that I've actually lost this deck is if they win by finishing me off with a Leroy Jenkins or playing a Prince Kalseth turn 1 by coining it, or turn 2. So I actually think that it's not that insane without at least Prince Kalseth, if not Leroy Jenkins too. So because of that, it makes it more expensive. And you could probably get rid of Leroy Jenkins for like an Argent Commander. And a Prince Kalseth, little harder to replace, because if you get rid of that, you could start having 2-drops. And also some of them run Void Ripper, and it has a lot more rares in general with the Despicable Dreadlord, Light Warden, Life Drinker, Serenite Chain Gang. It's just a more expensive deck. I'm looking at a deck list right now because just so I knew all of the cards. Like, I knew most of the cards, but I didn't know exactly all the ones that were used. And this one, which looks like a fairly standard deck, is 5,000 dust. Now, you could take out the 2 legendaries, which is 3,200, and replace them with, say, like 2 Argent Commanders. And if you do that, it's sitting at about 2,000 dust, which means that this deck is like twice as expensive as Face Hunter. So because of the price and the easy accessibility for Face Hunter, and the fact that I'd put Zoolock and Face Hunter on pretty much the exact same level, I think that Face Hunter is the best budget deck in the game because it's cheap and it's just as good, if not better, than the only other arguable option that there is, being Zoo Warlock. There's also Tempo Rogue, which I played for a little bit, and Tempo Mage. But both of those I have experimented with a little bit, tried playing them at the beginning of the season, and had very minimal success. Tempo Rogue, I went from rank 18 to rank 15 very slowly. Hybrid Hunter, similar to Face Hunter, but a little bit slower, so I wouldn't actually recommend that one. If you were going to do that, just go Face Hunter. And because of that, I think this deck is the best in the game. I've shown you the deck list. I've told you why it's good, basically just because of how fast it is in this very slow meta, and how it faces up against the competition. I think it beats all of the competition, except for maybe Heal Zoolock, which is more expensive in general, and I don't know how good Heal Zoolock would be without the 2 legendaries that it uses. So that's pretty much it. These are just some thoughts that I wanted to portray because of the fact that a lot of people want to play this game, and I have friends who want to play the game at a decent level and are always like, well, I don't have the dust to make these decks. This deck is definitely a deck you can get to rank 5 with. That's all I have to say.